Today we're going to be taking a look at 40765 Kamino Training Facility. This set is 2025's May 4th GWP, containing 190 pieces, and the threshold to get this set was $160, meaning that if you spent at least $160 on LEGO Star Wars sets from a LEGO store or LEGO.com in between May 1st and May 5th, you would get this set included with your order for free. Regardless though, as you can tell, this is definitely one of the most unique GWPs we've ever gotten. I mean, this is clearly a pretty niche set with the clone cadets and a not so recognizable build, and because it's pretty niche, I actually think it works better as a GWP than the one from last year did, but I'll talk about that more here in a minute. On the back of the box, you're going to find another angle of the set showcasing all of the play features, and then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 2 numbered bags as well as your instruction manual. Here we have the clone cadets, the first time LEGO has ever made these guys, and let me tell you, they look really good. There's not a whole lot going on because their outfits are pretty simple, but LEGO actually went the extra mile on these. They have printed arms and dual molded legs, and while the face print along with the printing on the torso and the back definitely isn't the most exciting, I'm just happy that LEGO actually went all the way with this figure and did all the detail they possibly could and made them as accurate as possible, because they definitely don't do that much anymore. However, as good as these guys are, I have seen a few people online talking about how these are the clone cadets sleeping outfits and not their training outfits, and every time I saw comments about this, I would always just kind of brush it off because I'd be like, well, the set is based off episode 2, we didn't see them in their training outfits in episode 2, we only saw them in these red outfits. However, then I look at the box and it is called Kamino Training Facility, and we never saw them training in episode 2. We only saw that in the Clone Wars, and we also didn't see any of these side builds in episode 2, like the gun rack or the cannon tower. So that does make me think that, yeah, maybe this set actually kind of is based off the Clone Wars, and it does actually give some validity to the argument that this isn't technically 100% accurate, because these are their wrong outfits. These are their sleeping outfits and not their training outfits that we see in the Clone Wars. But despite these technically being the wrong outfits, they are accurate to what they are supposed to be based off of. Now taking a look at the actual builds of this set, first up here we have the gun rack, and this is just a very simple build that has an extra rifle on it, as you can see, but it is cool that it's included. You can post a clone trooper up next to it with his guns on the rack. And then here we have the tower with the cannons on it, and this is super simple. I honestly wish they put a bit more effort into this. The top can spin, as you can see here, which is pretty cool, but the build itself looks like it came from the early 2000s, and I wish there was just a tad bit more effort put into this. And then here we had the main build being the Kaminoan Enforcer ship, and I'm not gonna lie, unlike the other builds, this looks pretty cool. Like I mentioned earlier, it's clearly a very niche ship. I don't think the average person is going to recognize this, but regardless, I still think it looks pretty interesting. The shaping around the top, or the cockpit, or the head, whatever you want to call it, is nice. There's also some engines on the back, and then these thrusters on the side that can actually rotate around and kind of lock into position if you want to display it in different ways. And then this long piece on the bottom can fold down to where it's completely straight, and this is how the ship is supposed to look. I mean, this is how it looks in episode 2. This is its flying position, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty cool like this. I think this ship itself just has a pretty intriguing design compared to a lot of other ships in Star Wars, and that just translates well to a LEGO set. However, clearly you can't stand it up like this, so that's why it bends in half, so you can have a way to sit it down. And you can actually open up this cockpit. There's really not much of an interior. There's nothing really going on the inside, but obviously if you want to, you can grab one of your clone troopers and stand him up in here and fold the cockpit back up. And that's really all there is to see with this set, just one main build and 2 very simple side builds. However, like I mentioned earlier, I do want to compare it to last year's GWP, which objectively is a way better set. I mean, this droid carrier looks a lot cooler, it's way more intriguing, it's a more popular vehicle, and because of all those things, I mean, I've said this time and time again, but I think this should have been a normal set. If this was a $30 set last year, it would have flown off the shelves, the community would have loved this thing. However, LEGO decided to make it a GWP, and I just don't think that was the move, because this would have been very popular as a normal set, and that's why I think this Kamino set works better as a GWP. It's really not the better set. I mean, I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. The droid carrier is just a little bit cooler. However, it's more niche, less recognizable figures, less recognizable ship, and because of that, it wouldn't have worked as a normal set, unlike the droid carrier. But it really just comes down to what floats your boat. If you're someone that usually spends enough money to get these GWPs, I'm sure you don't care that this droid carrier had a $160 threshold, but if you're someone that doesn't spend so much money to get GWPs, I'm sure you probably wish this droid carrier was a normal set. Anyways though, back to just this Kamino set, like I mentioned earlier, I do actually think there is some validity to the argument that these clone troopers are in their wrong outfits, and also I think that tower build is really basic and could be a tad bit better. So because of those 2 things, I'm just going to take off 1 point and give it a 9 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about this May 4th promo down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right Today we're going to be taking a look at 75399 Rebel U-Wing Fighter. This set will be releasing on May 1st with 594 pieces and a retail price of $70 US, which is $10 cheaper than the original U-Wing from 2016 that retailed for $80. However, if you adjust that set's price for inflation, it comes out to about $100 in today's money. And of course, I'll briefly compare these two sets towards the end of the video. Now, one thing I have to say about this U-Wing though is that its box art is absolutely beautiful. The set itself might not be that great, but the box art, in my opinion, is one of the best looking that we have gotten in the past few years. I just think it's very aesthetically pleasing with the placement of the build and the planet in the background. It just looks great. And then on the back, you're going to find another render of the set along with some pictures up at the top right showcasing its play features. And then actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 6 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a small sticker sheet with just 6 stickers. Moving on to the minifigures, you get 4 included in this set, and first up here we have the ISB Tactical Agent. And this figure looks great. There's loads of detail on the front with continuous printing going from the legs to the chest, and then on the back you're going to find some great detail as well. And he also comes with a riot shield, which I think looks really cool. Now I do have to say, based off the torso and leg printing, this figure does look like it should have some sort of helmet, because it's clearly very reminiscent of Stormtrooper armor, but I mean, hey, this is how they appear in Andor, so I guess it's accurate. And then next up here we have the figure in this set that's getting all the talk right now, that being Dedra Meero. And this should be the highlight minifigure of this set. However, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the elephant in the room out of the way. Her legs look downright awful, and that's because, well, as you can see, the white on her legs is clearly a different shade of white from the white on the torso, and this is because it's white printing on top of a black leg piece, so it just makes it faded. And right when this set got revealed, everyone, myself included, knew this was going to be a problem with this figure, but actually seeing it in person, it's a lot worse than I was expecting it to be. It genuinely just does not look good. The white on her legs looks like a wet paper towel or something. It's just bad. And obviously on the box they're going to show it off as perfect white, but in person it's not perfect white at all. And this has been happening for years now, and I mean, Lego, just fix it already. Just put 2 layers of printing on top of these pieces so it doesn't bleed through like this. But on the bright side though, the rest of the figure looks great, especially that hat hair piece combo. I mean, as you can see here, it looks amazing, and I'm sure this could be used on other figures as well. And then she's also going to have a double-sided face. Anyways though, next up here we have the man himself, Cassian Andor, and this figure is fairly simple. It's just his season 2 outfit. However, it looks really good. There's great printing on the front and the back, and then he too is also going to have a double-sided face. And then lastly we have what I think is the actual highlight minifigure of this set, being K2SO, and he looks great. I'm very happy they finally remade this character, and they did a good job on him. He's fairly simple, but he looks accurate and detailed. And if you're wondering, here's what he looks like compared to the older version, and as you can tell, they're pretty much exactly the same, exact same mold and everything. However, there is some very minor differences on the chest printing, as you can see here, and then the older model from 2016 actually has printing on the sides and back of his head, which, to be honest, I think makes it look a little bit cooler. However, if you don't have that old one, don't go spend a bunch of money on it. I do think it's a bit better, but this new one is still great. Overall, I think this lineup on paper is solid. Some of you might think that 4 figures is really not enough for a $70 set, and I mean, I could get behind this, but at the same time, I don't really care. I think 4 figures is fine for $70, and on top of that, at the time of me recording this video at least, we haven't seen the episode of Andor this set is actually based off of, so we don't really know what other characters are in the scene. I mean, maybe they could have thrown in like a Krennic or something, but I think for the most part, this lineup is good. And when I say lineup, I just mean the lineup of characters included in this set, not their overall quality, because again, Dedra Meero's legs are not good. Now moving on to the actual model itself, there's some things I like about it, and there's some things I don't like about it. The first thing I want to say though is I really appreciate how sleek and clean looking the model is. It's by no means perfect, but it is very clean looking, which I really like. On the wings, you're going to find some very minimal detail with some stickers, and also a few different colors going on with the white and the blue and the yellow, and there's like some mix match detail here and there to kind of give it that rusty rebel ship look. And then right in front of the cockpit, you're going to find a small little yellow sticker adding some detail, and then right below that, you're going to have the 2 main cannons with some spring-loaded shooters. And these spring-loaded shooters have pretty much the exact same function as the old one did, where there's just this brick-built button on top that you can press down and fire them. And I'm not gonna lie, this is actually really satisfying. Now, the cockpit windshield piece is printed, and it's supposed to be white, the same shade of white as the actual bricks. However, as you can tell, it basically has the same problem that Dedra's legs have, where it's a very, very faded white that just doesn't match the rest of the ship. And if you look on the box art, they depict it as completely white, matching the rest of the ship. However, in person, it's not that way at all. And I'm not gonna go so far to say that this is false advertising, but it is definitely a pretty strong miscommunication to the consumer. Anyways though, the area around the cockpit looks really good with all these slope pieces giving it a very clean look in my opinion. However, as you can tell, they come up over the windshield piece a little bit, creating a bit of a lip, and because of this, it's kind of hard to just manually grab the windshield piece and open it, so they did pretty much the exact same thing they did on the old one, if any of you guys had that set, where there's this little button on the back that you can push inwards and it kind of pops the windshield piece open to where you can easily grab it and open it up. And then inside the actual cockpit, there's going to be some very minimal detail with just a brown seat as well as a stickered control panel. And of course, you can grab Cassian and sit him in the cockpit and fold the windshield back down. And overall, this whole front area, excluding the windshield piece, looks very good. Again, it's super clean and I like that. However, as clean and as smooth looking as this area may be, like I'm sure you've seen others point out, it is way too narrow. And you can easily see this when you look at an actual picture of the U-Wing from Star Wars and then compare it to this set. It's just too narrow. It's not anything drastic, but I really think it should be about 1 or 2 studs wider. Regardless though, back behind the windshield piece, you're going to find this little area that's basically supposed to represent the engine of the ship, which I think looks pretty cool. And then right behind that, we have the actual engine thrusters themselves. And I have to say, this is probably the worst area of this build. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the actual engines themselves, like the individual cylinders, look really good. Individually, they are clean and detailed and built well. However, the reason I say this is the worst area of the ship is because they are way too big. And this is another thing you can see when you just go look at an actual picture of the U-Wing in Star Wars. The engines are a bit smaller and they're closer together. However, on this one, they're way too large. Again, they individually look good, but they're way too large. They're too spread apart. As you can see here, there's this pretty large gap in between them. And I mean, as a whole, they look all right. However, it definitely throws off the proportions of the ship a little bit. On the very back here at the bottom, there's going to be this piece you can fold down if you want to. It doesn't reveal anything. You can't see into the interior through here, but I mean, hey, it's here to fold up and down if you want to do that. And then the sides of the hull look all right. There's good shaping and a little bit of detail with the windows there. And then you can fold these doors down on either side. They technically should be sliding doors. However, I'll talk about that more here in a little bit. But regardless, you can fold these down. It is a bit tricky though, as you can see here. I wish there was like a small handle sticking out or something to make this easier. But anyways, when they're folded down, they reveal a very small and minimal interior. There's really nothing going on in here. Literally just a small seat and then a small sticker control panel back there that you can barely see. It's kind of hard to get on camera. And if you want to, I guess you can take K2SO or one of the other figures and put them in here. It's very crammed and hard to do. You kind of just have to throw them in here and then fold the doors up. But I mean, if you try hard enough, it is doable. And then lastly, for this bottom section on the front here, there is this sloped transparent piece that adds some detail and you can kind of see into the interior from here. Now, the main play feature with this set is obviously the wings being able to open, and this is very easy to do. You literally just pull them apart and fold them back, and it uses the exact same technique as the old one, where there is a ball joint on the front that holds them closed and then a ball joint on the back that holds them open. And when the wings are open and it's in its flying mode, I guess you could call it, it does look pretty good for the most part. However, it does make the cockpit area look really small. Really going back to what I said earlier with this front area being too narrow, the length of the cockpit is fine, but again, it's just too narrow and it looks even worse when the wings are open. Now, the last thing I want to do is compare it to the 2016 model, and as you can tell, the 2016 model is quite a bit larger. However, like I said at the beginning, it's technically a $100 set when you adjust it for inflation, and yeah, there's definitely a $30 difference between these two models. As you can tell, the 2016 model has way better proportions, it's the correct width, it's not too narrow, and the engines are actually the proper size, they're not too big. And then perhaps the main thing it has over the newer one is that it has actual sliding doors, which is how the doors are actually supposed to be, because that's how they appear in Rogue One. And on top of that, it has a way more roomier interior, and it has these little turrets that fold out the side, which were a pretty prominent feature of the ship in Rogue One. And while I do have to say the newer one is overall a little bit more detailed on the outside and more clean looking, the older one beats it in pretty much every other category with proportions and sizing and especially playability. And all of this brings me to the conclusion that I really think this set should have been $100. I mean, for what we get, $70 is definitely a great price. This set is not overpriced or underpriced at all in my opinion. However, making it $30 cheaper than the older model, again with inflation adjusted, just sacrificed way too much in my opinion. I appreciate LEGO trying to make this a cheaper set, however in this case it was just not worth it. And I think if this set was $100, it would feel way more complete, and it would obviously have all the same play features and be as accurate as the older model, which I think a lot of people would be willing to spend the extra money for. Oh, and of course, not to mention the problem with the windscreen piece and Dedra's legs. So because of that, I'm feeling a solid 7.5 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75406 Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle. This set will be releasing on May 1st with 386 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. Yes, this set is going to retail for $70 US, really making it one of the most overpriced sets of the year so far. But real quick, I want to talk about the box art, and that's because the all black 18 plus box art is really hindering this set. And that's clearly because the ship is all black and there's just no contrast at all. The ship just blends in with the box art. Obviously there's that red glow behind the ship, but it doesn't really help that much. And from far away, this thing is just not very noticeable. And when most people walk into a Lego store, I feel like this is going to be one of the last sets that catches their eye just because there's no contrast on the box art. The all black 18 plus box art was a decent gimmick for a while. There's some sets it definitely worked with and looked cool with, but in this set in particular, it's really handicapping it. And in my opinion, I think it's about time Lego goes back to colored box arts for these sets, or at the very least, a colored background with the black trim at the bottom. But front box art aside, the rest of the box art looks cool. You're going to see a back view of the ship on the side, as well as a much better picture on the back where you're going to see it in its landing position, as well as some pictures from the ship in the movies. And then on the right side, you're going to have the dimensions of the ship, which is 5 inches wide and 13 inches tall. Now opening up the box and dumping out the contents, you're going to find just 3 numbered bags. Yeah, 3 numbered bags for $70. 2 bags for the wings and then 1 bag for the cockpit of the ship. You're also going to have your instruction manual where on the first few pages there is some nice information to read about Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle and the design process of the ship that you can pause and read if you want to. Now taking a look at the actual model itself, I have to say the wingspan is actually quite a bit larger than I was expecting it to be, and the ship overall definitely has its highs and its lows, a lot of lows. One thing I do have to say though is I really enjoyed the build process. It was super fast and fun and simple. There were just some pretty interesting techniques used throughout the build that made it kind of fun. But that's just the build process. The actual set itself is definitely not perfect. But first I want to take a look at the display stand. On the front you're obviously going to have your printed plaque that says Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle, and then the display stand itself is just your typical MIDI scale display stand. It's pretty much exactly the same as the other ones, and if you're wondering how it connects to the ship, there's just a Technic rod that sticks out that you can use to very easily attach and detach the ship from. The top of the cockpit, or the hull, whatever you want to call it, actually looks pretty good. There's a fair amount of detail on it, and then you're going to have the engines back here that also look quite nice. They're very simple, but they get the job done. However, despite the top of this area having some detail, the actual front of the cockpit itself is way too narrow. Yes, I know in universe this area of the ship is slightly shaped like a triangle, like what they tried to do in the set here, but they overdid it. The front is just way too narrow and it kind of throws it off for me. Based on that transparent piece right there, you can tell it's only 2 studs wide when it definitely should have been 4 studs wide. It would have made it look way more accurate and way more proportional. However, this cockpit actually does have one cool thing about it, and that's that if you break the top pieces off, you can just barely see back there a little General Hux and a little Kylo Ren. And when you come to this part of the build in the instructions, there's actually a little paragraph at the bottom that you can pause and read if you want to. Now, the inside of the wings, specifically just the inside, actually look pretty good. There's not a whole lot going on. It's really just the top of the plates with some minor detailing here and there, along with some decent detail at the bottom, and then you have the actual cannons on each wing that look pretty good. However, it starts to go downhill very quickly when you fold the wings up into its landing position, and that's because the bottom of the wings are just straight anti-studs. There's nothing going on, just straight bland anti-studs. And to be brutally honest, I think this just looks downright ugly. I think they definitely should have put some inverted tiles back here just to give it some detail and not make it so bland and boring looking with the wings folded up like this. But no, it's literally just the bottoms of the plates, and again, it just does not look good at all. If you are someone that actually ends up getting this set, the best way to display it is without a doubt with the wings open so you don't have to see the outside of them. And speaking of opening and closing the wings, I guess I should show you how you do that. There's no special technique or function or anything. They're just on hinges and you just pull them open and close them back. And I'm not gonna lie, using just hinges to connect the wings here is not the greatest design choice. One, because the wings are very flimsy and wobbly, as you can see here. They just move around all over the place and can break off very easily. And also the wings are a bit heavy, and sometimes the hinges on their own just aren't strong enough to hold them up. So when you try to pose it in different positions, they tend to just fall all the way down. And I think for a set you're paying $70 for, this is honestly just kind of unacceptable. There's really no reason as to why they couldn't have used some type of Technic method to connect these wings. It would have made them a lot stronger and have a lot more posability. But no, there's just hinges, and it's just kind of cheap feeling in my opinion. Except the set itself is not cheap. You're paying $70 for it. Now again, it's not completely terrible. There are some good things like the detail around the cockpit and the detail of the inside of the wings, but those few things alone really don't make up for all the bad things that I mentioned. And then again, on top of all of that, it's overpriced. $70 is just too far. I think this would have been a great maybe $55 to $60 set, but $70? No. And I would say to wait until this set goes on sale somewhere from $50 to $60 before you get it. However, at the same time, there's two other mini-scale sets that are in that $50 to $60 price range, being the Acclimator and the Invisible Hand, that are both significantly better than this set. And it's not only because they're cheaper, it's because their builds are just better looking, and they have way better structural integrity. And don't even get me started on the other ones you could get for $70. I'm feeling a solid 6 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75407 Brick Built Star Wars logo. This set just released on May 1st with 700 pieces and a retail price of only $60 US, which is actually a pretty good deal for this in my opinion. And this might be one of the most bizarre, well, I don't want to say bizarre, but unique LEGO Star Wars sets we've ever gotten. And the reason I say that is just because we've never gotten something like this before. And I think from a collector's standpoint, the idea for a set like this is awesome. And as you'll see later on in the video, this set is surprisingly very impressive. Anyways though, on the back of the box, you're going to find a few pictures. One is a picture showing this set on a shelf and how it's supposed to be displayed, along with this really awesome picture of A New Hope with like the Death Star in the background and some X-Wings and TIE Fighters going up to it, and then the dimensions of the set at the far right corner. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 6 numbered bags, as well as 2 instruction manuals. One instruction manual is going to be for the top half of the build, and the other instruction manual is going to be for the bottom half of the build. And right inside the first instruction manual, you're going to find some paragraphs talking about the design process of this set, as well as the Star Wars logo itself that you can pause and read if you want to. And let me tell you, I am genuinely pretty impressed with this set. I was not expecting it to be this good. The actual build process is extremely intricate and intriguing, and overall just very enjoyable. It was just super fun to see how each letter of the logo came together with so many awesome and unique techniques used all throughout this build. And if you're someone that really cares about build process and build experience, you're most likely gonna love this set. It was definitely one of the most fun builds I've had on any set I've gotten recently. And the overall model is pretty much perfect. I mean, it looks super clean. I'm genuinely impressed on how they were able to pull off the shapes of these letters with Lego pieces and do such a perfect job at it. And when you look at it closely, you can really tell how intricate this build is by simply noticing all the tiny little lines and cracks that are all the small pieces that go into these letters. I also like how smooth the build is. There's no studs showing on the letters themselves. There's only studs showing on the black pieces that are in between the letters, which I honestly think is really cool because 1, it's a nice little background, and 2, as you can see, they kind of did some greebling with these black pieces, and that gives them kind of a rougher look, which creates a nice little contrast from the smoothness of the letters. Now, if you're wondering, yes, there is one little feature or Easter egg, I guess, within this set, which is actually up here on the top of the T. You can just pull this top piece off, and it reveals the opening scene to A New Hope, with a little miniature Star Destroyer and a little miniature Tantive 4, and then a tiny little half-circle tile piece that I guess is supposed to represent Tatooine. And as you can see here, they sit on top of these little dark red transparent studs, and these are just very simple micro builds. I mean, the Tantive is literally only 3 pieces, and the Star Destroyer is only about 6 pieces, but for what they're supposed to be, they work really well. And honestly, I just think it's awesome that they were able to hide an Easter egg within this build. If you're someone that has a large LEGO Star Wars display, or just a LEGO Star Wars display in general, you would most likely love this set because it goes with a display like this so well. It looks good, it's simple, it's clean, and it just makes sense. However, there is one thing I briefly want to talk about though, and that's that if you remember back when the information for this set originally leaked back in like, I don't even know, I want to say maybe September of 2024, it was originally rumored to include a George Lucas minifigure, and then obviously that rumor turned out to be not true. However, I do have to say, I think a figure, preferably a George Lucas figure, would have gone a really long way with this. Now, without a doubt, it most likely would have raised the price up to probably $70, but I think a lot of people would have enjoyed that. And if not a George Lucas minifigure, maybe a Darth Vader minifigure, just something to be included with it. I mean, I personally don't care that much because what we do have is great and for a good price as well, but I know there's a lot of people that do care about that, and I have to say it definitely would have enhanced the set quite a bit. So because of that, I'm gonna take off half a point and give it a 9.5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75408 Jango Fett Helmet. This set just released on May 1st with 616 pieces and a retail price of $70 and it was designed by Niels Bundesen, I hope I said the name right, who has designed a lot of the 18 plus sets recently, most notably the midi-scale Home 1, the midi-scale Millennium Falcon, and the buildable Droideka. And after years of waiting, we finally have a Jango Fett helmet. I'd say without a doubt, this was one of the most overdue helmet sets until now, and it also finally completes the Mandalorian helmet collection. We got Boba Fett's 2020, The Mandalorian in 2022, and now we have Jango Fett. And as exciting as this set is, there is one big glaring issue with it, and that's those stickers on top of the forehead, but I'll talk about those more here in a minute. On the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the set showing how you can move the rangefinder down, as well as some pictures at the bottom, two being some very awesome pictures of Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, and then of course a picture of the dimensions in the middle. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 5 separate numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual, which of course in the first few pages has some paragraphs about this set and paragraphs about Jango Fett that you can pause and read if you want to. And then we have the sticker sheet with 14 separate stickers on it, just ridiculous. Now here is the actual finished model, and I have to say the build itself is beautiful. I mean, it's pretty much perfect and completely accurate in terms of shaping and everything like that. It couldn't be better, and we'll take a look at all that stuff, but man, first I gotta talk about these stickers. And as you can see, they just don't look good. They look really bad. They're continuous and they go all around the build, as you can see here, literally all around the top of the head. And first of all, if you're someone that's not good at putting on stickers like me, you're gonna have a rough time with this. It's just most likely not gonna be lined up and not gonna look very good. And then also, of course, the color of the stickers themselves is a slightly different shade of gray than the actual color of the pieces, which is a problem with all stickers. And at this point, I just think 18+ sets should not have stickers anymore. They should have only printed pieces. I mean, one, because they're for adult collectors, but also because you're paying a lot of money for these. I mean, this is $70. That's not cheap. It should be the highest quality possible, which to me at least would be all printed pieces. And speaking of a set with only printed pieces, the Kylo Ren helmet that also just released on May 1st that I reviewed a few days ago has all printed pieces, and it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, the face area alone on this set is really impressive. However, that's Kylo Ren, a cool character, but this is Jango Fett, a set that is obviously going to be way more popular and way more cared about by the community, except it doesn't have printed pieces. It has these stickers that just look flat out awful. I mean, Lego, these just should have been printed pieces. It's not going to hurt your profit margins that much to print these pieces. But on the bright side though, like I briefly mentioned earlier, everything besides the stickers is pretty much perfect. On the stand, you're of course going to have your little printed plaque that says Jango Fett, and then like usual, the stand itself is just your typical helmet set stand. Very sleek, very clean looking. It's what they've been using for years now, and it works. And another thing I like about these stands is that they work as a great handle to be able to pick up the set and easily move it around. The shaping around the face and the eyes is gorgeous. There's a lot of fun and satisfying techniques going on to be able to pull off the shape of Jango Fett's helmet here. Now, along this face area, there are also some very minor gaps. They're definitely not that big of a deal, but if you look for them, you can find them, and I thought they were worth pointing out. The sides of the helmet look great too. On the left side, there's not much going on, but it looks good. However, on the right side is where you're obviously going to find his rangefinder, and of course, it can move up and down as you can see here, and you can display it like this if you want to. Now, I don't think it looks the greatest displayed like this, but it's still cool that this is a feature. And if you're wondering what the top of the helmet looks like, it's just studs, which is fine. I mean, this is typical for Lego Star Wars helmet sets. And then like the front, the back is also going to look very clean and sleek. And there's actually some cool details going on back here with those gray cheese slopes in the middle. I think they give it a nice look. I know this technically isn't the part of the helmet that you're supposed to see at all times, but there's still detail back here. Overall, the actual build and shaping and techniques used throughout this set are pretty much perfect. I've said that again and again, the actual build itself is beautiful, and I'm really happy they've finally completed the Mandalorian collection. However, as you read in the title, Lego really fumbled by using stickers on this set. For a set like this that's supposed to have continuous detail going all the way around, it just needs to have printed pieces, because as stickers, they're just too easy to misalign. And honestly, if these pieces were printed, I'd probably give this set a 10 out of 10, but unfortunately they're not, and they don't look very good. So because of that, I'm gonna take off 2 points and give it an 8 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see them on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75409 and Jango Fett's Slave 1. Yeah, the Slave 1. This set just released on May 1st with 2,970 pieces and a retail price of $300 US. And it was designed by Jackson Hughes, the same person responsible for sets like the Emperor's Throne Room diorama, the 332nd Ahsoka Clone Trooper Battle Pack, and the New Republic E-Wing vs. Shin Hati Starfighter. And after 22 years, we finally have a new Jango Fett Slave 1, and it's a UCS model. I was not expecting them to do that at all. But hey, I'm all here for it. It looks awesome, especially on the box art. Now recently, I actually haven't really been liking the black box arts on these 18+ sets. I liked them in the beginning with some of those sets, but at this point, I think it's about time Lego switches it up. However, I do have to say, this Slave 1 box art looks really great. The black and the blue go very nicely together. Anyways though, on the back of the box, there's quite a bit going on, with another big render of the set showcasing it displayed on its stand, along with Jango and Boba at the bottom, as well as the seismic charge that's included. And then you're gonna have the dimensions off to the left that you can pause and read if you want to. And then at the bottom, you're going to have a series of pictures that are more angles of this build, as well as pictures of the actual Slave 1 in episode 2. And then opening up this massive box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 23 separate numbered bags, along with an unnumbered bag that contains some larger pieces, the windshield piece in this brown paper bag, and then your 2 instruction manuals that come in their own brown paper bag. And I'm not going to lie, I've never seen instructions come in a bag like this before, but I have to say I'm not the biggest fan of it, mainly because it just doesn't protect them as good as those other cardboard cases. Anyways though, since this is a UCS set, of course inside the first instruction manual, you're going to find lots of information about the set, the designers of the set, and the ship in Star Wars that you can pause and read if you want to as I turn through each page. Taking a look at the 2 figures included in this set, just being Jango Fett and Boba Fett, there's quite a bit of controversy surrounding these 2 figures, but I mean, that's kind of expected at this point with every new LEGO Star Wars minifigure. And I guess first we'll start off with the one that is getting the most criticism, and that is young Boba Fett. And overall, I think this figure does look good. I mean, it's not like it's not aesthetically pleasing or just aesthetically ugly in any way, like the figure itself looks fine. However, there are 2 main things people are complaining about with this figure that I think are both valid criticism. The first one is the hairpiece. They used that hairpiece from one of the Ninjago minifigures. I think it was a Ninjago hairpiece at least, but regardless, on young Boba Fett, it doesn't look that good. I mean, it just doesn't match his hairstyle at all. There's no reason why they couldn't have just gone ahead and reused the one from the 2017 Boba Fett. And then the second thing is that obviously his arms are the wrong color. They should be dark blue when they're sand blue, as you can see here. And this is again something that the 2017 Boba Fett got right, but this one didn't. And again, the figure looks fine. I mean, the arms don't look bad. They look good and they go with the torso. However, the reason people complain about it is that it's simply just not accurate. And you know, if LEGO got it right in 2017, why can't they get it right again in 2025? It's just kind of frustrating, especially considering the fact that you are paying $300 for this set. That's not cheap. But on the other hand, Jango Fett actually looks pretty much perfect in my opinion. I think it's safe to say this is the best Jango Fett LEGO has ever made. There's absolutely beautiful printing all around on the chest and the torso and the arms. This is the first arm printed Jango Fett we've ever gotten. And he's also got that new rangefinder piece up there that looks amazing. Now, one thing people are complaining about with this figure is that his jetpack is gunmetal gray and not silver, because silver is the color that LEGO previously used on all these Jango Fett jetpacks. And while silver does look good and it does match the rest of his printing, the gunmetal gray isn't inaccurate. I mean, if you look in episode 2, his jetpack is a dark gray color, so I think the color they used here works completely fine. But anyways though, underneath his jetpack, you're going to find even more printing, and when you take his helmet off, he comes with a hairpiece that you can put on in replace of it, and as you can see, he's got a great face print with another double-sided face print. I mean, overall, one figure is really good, being Jango Fett, and the other one should be better, being Boba Fett, so it's kind of like a 50-50 split. Yes, it's disappointing that Boba Fett is not as good as he should be, but hey, at the very least, I'm happy Jango Fett looks as good as he does. Anyways though, now moving on to the actual model itself, unsurprisingly, it looks really good. Nowadays, LEGO has set the standard for UCS sets pretty high, and I think this set meets it. Overall, it's a very gorgeous and detailed build, and we'll dive into all of that, but first, I want to take a look at the display plaque and the stand. The display plaque is, of course, printed as you can see here, and it looks good for the most part, besides maybe that mold dimple right in the middle, and if you want to, you can pause and read this. There's a lot of information on here. However, one thing that is kind of annoying is that it does slightly get covered up by the bottom of the ship. I wouldn't say it's that big of a deal, but at some angles, it does get covered up quite a bit, and it is kind of hard to read unless you take it off. And as for the rest of the stand goes, I mean, it's a pretty basic Technic structure. It's definitely not the prettiest looking UCS stand, but I mean, it kind of has to be designed like this to hold the ship up. And speaking of holding up the ship, it's super easy to take on and off the stand. There's just these 2 hooks that stick out the back that it rests on pretty easily. Now, as for the interior, or I guess the cockpit goes, you can very easily pop the windshield piece off to reveal a pretty nice looking interior. And as for the windshield piece itself goes, as you can see, it is a pretty large piece, and it looks good for the most part. However, there are these 2 white stickers at the bottom, and on the actual transparent piece itself, they look good and add some detail, but unfortunately, as you can tell, they have the same problem as every sticker nowadays, where their color is slightly off from the color of the bricks, and as you can see here, their white is not matching the white of the actual pieces. And even if these weren't stickers and they were printed, it would still have the same problem as we saw on the U-Wing, and at this point, I wish LEGO would just fix this already, either fix the stickers or put 2 layers of printing just to fix this issue. Now, inside the cockpit, there actually is this section that is removable that you can just very easily slide out, and this is the area with really the main driver's seat along with all the controls. You can see it's actually fairly detailed with lots of sticker control panels, along with his big red targeting sensor here on the front. And then of course you can grab Jango Fett with his jetpack removed and sit him in the front cockpit seat, and take Boba Fett and put him in one of the back seats. And then again, you can just very easily slide this thing back into the cockpit, and it's honestly pretty satisfying. Now you also might have noticed there are 2 more seats right under this removable section, and obviously there's not 2 other figures included in this set to be able to put in these seats, so I guess if you have any extra ones lying around, you can throw them in there if you want to. And then lastly, for this interior space, there is this little sticker up here at the top that has some Star Wars writing on it that I believe translates to 00V04. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments, but either way, it's there, but when you put the cockpit windshield piece back on, it gets covered up. Now the area around the cockpit on the outside looks amazing. There's loads and loads of detail and great shaping on either side. In my opinion, this area is overall a big improvement from the 2015 Slave one. As good as that set is, this one does just look a tad bit better when it comes to shaping and detail. And also, just who doesn't love the color scheme of Jango Fett Slave 1? I mean, that sand green with the dark blue looks really good together. However, there is one slight issue I have with this area, and that's that there are these gaps on either side. Well, actually, I don't even want to call them gaps. They kind of just look like holes right there. And honestly, when I was building this set and I first noticed these, I thought I'd done something wrong, but no, this is actually how it's supposed to look. And it's definitely not the end of the world, but if you look closely, these holes or gaps, whatever you want to call them, are pretty noticeable. The wings, however, look pretty good. They're very detailed and they can move up and down, as you can see here. They move in unison and it's really awesome. You can kind of put them all the way back or put them all the way down, or kind of put them at an angle in between. It looks good either way. And then the area where the wings connect to the actual ship is very heavily detailed, as you can see here. There is a ton of greebling going on, and I'm not gonna lie, the build process for this area was very tedious and borderline frustrating, but the end result is really good looking, as you can see. And then moving down to the bottom half of this back area, just like the top, there's also amazing shaping and some amazing detail down here. I mean, they really did blow it out of the water with the shaping alone on this whole back shell area. However, there is one obvious issue down here, and that is these large stickers. I think the green and blue ones are actually fine. The real problem is those yellow ones. And as you can see, the yellow on these stickers is brutally off color from the yellow of the pieces. And it's very noticeable. Even from far away, it sticks out like a sore thumb. The off shading is just brutal. Again, the bigger ones that are green and blue look fine. However, these yellow ones for sure should have been printed. On the bright side though, the bottom area of the front half of the ship looks great. On either side here, you're going to have a small sticker that translates to no step, along with this black piece that's supposed to be a little cannon. And then on the front, you're going to have a few stickers with lots and lots of green tiles going all the way down to the bottom, where you're going to find the 2 main front cannons, along with even more great looking detail on either side. And as for the cannons go, they are connected so they can spin around in unison, and they have a fairly large range of motion. And also the top barrels of these cannons can kind of move up and down independently. I'm not sure if they do that in universe, but on this set, this is a feature if you want to do that. Spinning around the model to the back, as you can see, there's quite a bit going on back here. Lots of very extensive detail from the top to the bottom, and of course the engines look absolutely amazing. However, the main thing to see back here is of course the seismic charge. That's tucked away in its own little compartment here, and the seismic charge itself actually looks really cool. Now it is completely all stickers. I did not know this until I built this set. I was expecting these to be printed pieces, but no, everything you see here is stickers on the seismic charge, which I think is just a bit unnecessary. For $300, can we at least have some printed parts in this set? Regardless though, it looks good if you put the stickers on right, and then of course you can put it back in its little compartment. Now taking the set off the stand and laying it down on its back, which is technically its landing position, it actually does look really cool like this. This is definitely a way you could display it. However, the main thing to see when you have it landed like this is this awesome play feature down here at the bottom, where you can actually push down and open this gray ramp right here, and it basically reveals a door into the interior. Now obviously when you look down in there, there's nothing to see, but it's really cool that they included this feature. And of course you can have Jango propped up on the ramp like this, and it looks awesome. And then when you want to close it, there's this lever at the top that you just push down and the ramp folds back up. And I'm not gonna lie, this is super satisfying and fun to do. Now giving an overall conclusion and rating to this set is actually kind of challenging. Yes, the model itself looks beautiful. I mean, that's to nobody's surprise. Every UCS set generally looks pretty good. However, I personally hold these UCS sets to higher standards, so little things like the minifigure inaccuracies as well as the stickers just matter more. And I really do think there are way too many stickers on this set. There isn't one printed piece besides the display plaque and the minifigures, obviously. And for $300, that's just pretty ridiculous in my opinion. And also, again, like I mentioned earlier, some of those stickers, specifically the yellow ones at the bottom, are very off-colored. And then of course you have the inaccuracies with Boba Fett, so it's just little things like that that matter more in these UCS sets, to me at least, because you're paying a lot more for them. I mean, this is $300, that's very expensive, and little things like that just need to be improved upon. However, overall, the build does look really really good, and that's why I said it's kind of hard to rate this set, but I think I'm gonna land on a good rating of 8.8 out of 10. If the little things like the stickers and Boba Fett were fixed, this could very easily be a 10 out of 10 set, but they're not fixed, and they are kind of a blatant issue for a UCS set like this, so I'm landing on an 8.8. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you show me the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75415 Kylo Ren Helmet. This set will be releasing on May 1st with 529 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. And dare I say, up until this point, I personally think this has been one of the most overdue LEGO Star Wars helmets. But regardless, this set is part of celebrating the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. Yes, that movie is 10 years old now. And this is actually something I forgot to mention with the midi-scale Kylo Ren Command Shuttle that I reviewed a few days ago. Both of these sets collectively are kind of supposed to be a mini celebration for the 10th anniversary of that movie. And if you guys watched my review on that Command Shuttle, you know I did not like that set at all, so hopefully the helmet is going to be a bit better, and based off this box art, I think it's going to be. And speaking of the box, on the back you're going to find another angle of the helmet, as well as some pictures at the bottom showing Kylo Ren in the movies, as well as the dimensions in the middle. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 5 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual, which on the first few pages is going to have some information about Kylo Ren with a quote, and some information about the set that you can pause and read if you want to. Now here's the actual model itself, and I think it looks good, but my opinions for it for the most part are kind of all over the place. But I guess first we'll take a look at the stand, where on the front you're going to have a little printed display plaque that says Kylo Ren, and then from there the stand itself is just the exact same stand design they've used on every other LEGO Star Wars helmet set, so there's nothing new to see here, but it's a good design and it's always worked. Now if you couldn't tell already, the face is really where you're going to find all of the detail and highlights of this set, and I think it looks pretty much perfect. They did an amazing job on the face, and not to mention that every single one of these pieces are printed. There are absolutely no stickers, so it was super fun and easy to put together, and it looks really good because there's really no risk for error if you're someone that's bad at putting on stickers like I am. And then also, of course, the shaping on the mouth guard and the shaping around the eye area looks amazing as well. Again, with just the front face alone, they really blew it out of the water. I'm super happy with how it looks. But the reason I said the front is where the only detail is because when you go to the back, there's really not much going on. It's just complete studs. And I mean, there's nothing really wrong with this. It's just that if you're wondering if there's any detail back here, there's not much to see besides studs. There's definitely some great shaping, but there's really nothing else going on. However, one issue I do kind of have with the back down here is that from some angles, it looks like the back gets kind of cut off too high. And what I mean by that is I think the back should just come down a bit further, maybe just 1 stud or 2 studs, because from certain angles, especially straight onto the build, it does look like the back just gets cut off a bit too high. I mean, I might be the only person that cares about this, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Now, another thing I want to mention with this set is that compared to some of the other helmets, especially ones that have released recently, it does look a tad bit small. And there's really nothing inherently wrong with this. I assume it's to scale with the other helmets. However, it's just a bit smaller, and it also has a significantly low piece count compared to the other ones, with only 529 pieces, actually making it the helmet with the second lowest piece count, just behind the Scout Trooper, while most of the other ones, especially these two I'm showing here, have over 700. And again, there's something wrong with this. However, it does make me think this set could have been a bit cheaper. I really appreciate the consistency of having all these helmet sets retail for $70. However, this one is a little bit smaller and has a significantly lower piece count, so it really does make me think this could have been a bit cheaper at $60 instead of $70. But overall, I think for the most part it looks good, especially on the face. They did an amazing job, and I love how it has all printed pieces. If you're someone that's not really into helmets and you want to get one, I'd honestly recommend the AT-AT driver over this. However, if you're someone that does collect helmets, I think this is kind of a necessary addition to the collection just because it's Kylo Ren, and like I mentioned at the beginning, I do think this has been kind of overdue. Anyways though, I'm feeling a solid 8 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75416 Chopper. This set just released on May 1st with 1,039 pieces and a retail price of $100 US. And as you can tell from the box art on the bottom left, as well as the Chopper minifigure on the bottom right, this Chopper is based off of Ahsoka, not Rebels. Either way though, I have very high expectations for this set for the sole reason that the R2-D2 that released last year is pretty much perfect. Because that set is so good and widely regarded to be one of the best sets of 2024, I have very high hopes for this Chopper. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to find another render of this set along with its display plaque, and then some pictures up at the top right showcasing its play features. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 7 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a sticker sheet with 12 stickers on it. Now taking a look at the one and only minifigure in this set, of course being Chopper himself, and if you're wondering, yes, this is the same Chopper minifigure that's in the 2023 Ghost, and it looks really good. I prefer this Chopper over the Rebels Chopper. I think the white looks better with the orange. I mean, it's overall just a solid and unique astromech. I really don't think think LEGO could do any better on it. And of course, you're going to be able to sit him on the display plaque that has a lot of information on it that you can pause and read if you want to. Now here is the actual build itself, and let me tell you, this thing is pretty incredible. I mean, I'm personally going to go so far to say that the actual build itself is perfect. However, unfortunately, it is pretty small for $100, especially when you compare it to the R2-D2 that I just briefly mentioned that also has a retail price of $100. As you can tell, R2-D2 is quite a bit larger. Now they are to scale, so Chopper is the accurate size compared to R2-D2, which is great. I love that LEGO's doing that. The scaling is awesome because it makes them really nice for display. However, since Chopper is clearly a bit smaller and this R2-D2 is still on shelves for the same retail price, it just kind of makes you wonder that, you know, maybe this Chopper could have been about $10 or $15 cheaper, which I honestly think is kind of disappointing. I mean, like I said, I think the build itself is gorgeous. It's pretty much perfect, but the price is kind of hindering it. But retail price aside, actually diving into the play features of this model, on the top, you're going to notice these two arms that you can move and pose however you want to. There's multiple joints that they bend on, and you can kind of twist them and turn them and pose them however. And then of course, if you don't want them there, they can very easily pop off. The head itself is also designed very well with the 3 eyes as well as a little sticker on the front. And of course, you can spin it all the way around. It's got great shaping and detail all over. He's also got his little antenna or radar dish on the top that you can move back and forth. And then the main play feature with the head is that it could actually wobble side to side. And there's this little lever on the back here that you can move up and down to, you know, wobble the head back and forth. And I think this is awesome because we see Chopper do this a lot in Rebels where he kind of bobbles his head back and forth. And it's kind of ingenious that they were able to include this as a feature. Anyways though, as you might have noticed earlier, there is some very minimal detailing on the back, along with some detail on the back of his legs as well as the back of his feet with like some wires going in and out and stuff like that. And then the sides of his legs and feet look good too. However, as you can see on the sides of his feet, there are these 2 stickers here that are very atrociously off color. I mean, on each foot, it's pretty clear that the gray of the stickers is not the same shade of gray as the gray on the pieces. So because of that, I think it's pretty obvious that these should have been printed. Now, as for posing his legs goes, I mean, they got this down pretty much perfectly. As you can see, you can move him all the way forward and he rests on his, you know, middle leg with his wheel. And again, this looks perfect. This is exactly how he looks in Rebels. They nailed it here. Or if you want to, you can very easily pop off this leg in the middle and then stand his leg straight up and sit him like this. The front chest area is where you're going to find the most amount of detail. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, like wires and stickers, and it all looks really good and works well together. And unlike the gray stickers on the side of his feet, these white stickers on his chest actually come pretty close to matching the shade of white on the bricks. Now, it's not perfect, but it's definitely not as bad as the ones on the side of his feet. And of course, as you'd expect, there's a few movable parts in this area, like his main arm that can fold out from the front, as well as this piece down here at the bottom that can fold downwards. Now, like I've said over and over again, this set is near perfect. The only real complaint I have about the build itself are just those stickers on the side of his feet, because I think they should be printed. The rest, however, looks really good. I mean, LEGO blew it out of the water with this build. And honestly, I'm gonna go so far to say this is the best buildable droid LEGO has made so far. However, again, I don't like those stickers on the side of the feet, and like I mentioned earlier, it is overpriced. I mean, I really wish this set was $90 and not $100, and as bad as I want to give this set a 10 out of 10, I obviously just can't do that. So because of that, I'm feeling a solid 9.3 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now.